This is a video directed towards Jordan, although other people are welcome to watch it and follow along. I'll be reading some comments that me and Jordan went back and forth on a video. It was the video, Another Nice Discussion About Religion, where it was the young lady that I discussed religion with. There was a lot of people that went back and forth on that video. That video seemed to be very popular amongst you guys. It definitely spawned some interesting discussions and different takes. I won't really be addressing those, although I'm sure I will cover some stuff that was mentioned by other people, myself. So we'll just hop in. I will read through me and Jordan's comments, but I will elaborate as we go on. I'm going to try and structure it pretty well as we go through. So join me. So Jordan opens with this comment. I would disagree with the statement in your description. Most of the biggest advocates for Christianity are its smartest and best students, like theologians, apologists, Christian historians, biblical scholars, and more. Props to this young lady, but I personally think you ran into the wrong person when it comes to talking about Christianity. For context, the description that I wrote was, let's be honest, some of Christianity's biggest advocates are its dumbest students. Here's the thing, when we're talking about this comment and your excuse that I just ran into the wrong person, invariably it seems that is always the response when speaking to someone about a previous encounter with somebody who's a self-prescribed Christian. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard that response, which I think speaks volumes in and of itself, that there are that many of you who shout from the rooftops, but don't know what you're talking about. So we'll leave that there. I do address it later, but moving on to the next comment. My response was more or less what I touched upon a moment ago. The loudest voices amongst most Christians are the ones most people hear. I have debated and conversed with people far more adept in regards to the material. In my opinion, if you claim to believe in something, it is your responsibility to have a thorough understanding of it. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Jordan's response, I agree. If you believe in something, it is important to have a clear understanding of it. Unfortunately, not every Christian knows a lot of things about apologetics and preaching. They only know the fundamentals, but at the same time, you can apply that to other religions as well. You can even say the same about atheists. And here's where we start to detract from the meat of the conversation. What we're talking about here is you had issue with my original description. That was your original comment, and we veer so far away from that as me and you continue to go back and forth, as I think you lost sight of what your original point even was. So, moving on, you were corrected by JT, who said atheism isn't a religion, because it's not. But then you followed up with, it's a writing error. Okay, I'll give you that one. Now, there is an issue I have, because when I started screenshotting these comments, as we progress, you'll notice that there's a couple things I mentioned that are no longer there. All of these comments you can look for yourself. These are all in sequential order. And I don't delete comments. I very rarely ban people from my page unless they're just spouting absolute nonsense. I like it to be a public forum. I like people to be able to voice their opinion. Unless you are deliberately attacking somebody and who they are as a person, I mean, we can get into the nuances of, oh, well, you're doing that about religion. I disagree. I think we're just having a discussion, a debate here, but whatever. There's comments of yours that are missing, and we'll get to that in a second as well. But this was my response. I said that is quite unfortunate, especially when you consider the fact that Christianity as a whole loves to inject itself into major facets of our lives in America. You would think as a religion based on the Son of God, the desire to be the best of humanity would be more pressing. It's looked at as a triviality. I agree that most religions have this issue. However, as I stated prior, for a religion that holds itself in such high regard, and while also being such a young religion, it's unacceptable to allow that behavior and thus needs to be called out for what it is. Again, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. So I responded, and this is where I think that there's some comments that are missing, because I address you calling me a hypocrite, and I believe you said that more than once. So I said to call me a hypocrite when we were talking about the issue at hand is a reach. Nice try, though. We are on the topic of Christianity, not the neo-atheist movement, because you do mention that. Nowhere was that mentioned prior, so let's put that down and move forward. You cannot and will not, without lying to everyone and yourself, excuse the fact that Christianity has been damaging to the world as a whole. You can literally look it up. So while you try your best to defend a dying religion, please observe why it is dying. You responded with, Christianity is not a dying religion. Yes, in some areas it's on a decline due to persecution, etc. We're going to talk about that. But it does not mean it's dying entirely. In converts, Christianity is actually growing compared to other religions like Islam. Christianity has only had a few, in all caps, negative effects on society, while it has a lot more positive contributions to the world. And no, it isn't a reach to call you hypocritical because you want to be blindsided by trying to demoralize Christianity without doing the same to the neo-atheist movement. Example, a Muslim trying to demoralize Christianity for the Crusades, which was just a reason for a war on the Christian side, but not demoralizing their own religion's jihad. Do you see the hypocrisy in that? I do, but the example you're using is not correct because I do not have examples. We do not me, have examples of the neo-atheist movement causing the same. It's not comparable. It's not even on the same level. The example you used, very accurate, very on point. But if you're trying to use the neo-atheist movement, which I do not belong to nor align to, is irrelevant because I'm not claiming to be a part of any religion because I don't belong to any religion. I am critiquing one religion which has had demoralizing effects on society as a whole. That's the topic of this conversation. And going back to your original issue, the point of contention was the fact that you did not like the fact that I said that most of Christianity's loudest advocates are its dumbest students. I'm paraphrasing there. So let's address a couple things in this comment before we move on to the rest of them. I think it's very, very important to address one of your first comments that you said, well, it's not your very first, but you said Christianity has only had a few negative effects on society while it has done a lot more, or has a lot more positive contributions to the world. I'm going to read you a couple things. It's a long list. I'm not going to read all of it. These are just some of what Christianity has done, some of the harmful effects. First, the discouragement of rational, critical thought. That vilification of homosexuality resulting in discrimination, parents disowning their children, murder, and suicide, women treated like second-class citizens based on religious teachings, children growing up to hate and fear science and scientists because science disproves their parents' religion, leading to appalling scientific illiteracy, tens of thousands tortured and killed as witches, a practice which still continues today. People aren't making the most of this life because of their belief in an afterlife. People dying because they believe their faith makes them immune to snake venom or other lethal aspects of reality. People dying and letting their children die because their religion forbids accepting medical help. People choked, starved, poisoned, or beaten to death during exorcisms. Genital mutilation of babies endorsed by religious texts. Psychological and physiological conditions blamed on demons, preventing believers from seeking medical care for themselves and their children. People disowning family members for leaving their religion. Friendships and romances severed or never started over religious differences. Abstinence-only sex education resulting in 5 times the amount of sexually transmitted diseases in teenage pregnancies, often leading to ill-fated emergency marriages. Women having septic abortions. Censorship, often destructive, of speech, art, books, music, films, poetry, songs, and if possible, thought. The demonization of other religions. Example, Christianity demonizing pagans because they're devil worshippers. Children spending the period of their lives where their brain is most receptive to learning new information, reading, rereading, and even memorizing religious texts. That is a very big one. People who believe the world is about to end neglect their education and are not financially responsible, and in extreme cases take part in mass suicides. Long-term environmental issues ignored because of beliefs that the rapture/apocalypse or something will happen soon, so it don't matter. Wives told they will be tortured forever if they leave their abusive husbands, and vice versa. Holy wars, destruction of great works of art, slavery condoned by religious texts, children traumatized by vivid stories of eternal burning and torture to ensure that they will be too frightened to even question religion. terminal patients in constant agony who would end their lives if they didn't believe it would result in eternal torture, school boards having to spend time and money and resources on the fight to have evolution taught in schools, persecution of heretics, scientists like Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake, and Galileo. Blue laws forcing other businesses to stay closed or limit sales while churches can generate more revenue. There's like 40 fucking more just on this list. And that was posted, I believe, let me double check, by the American Atheists. All of those I can correlate and find sources for. It's not hard. So I think that's very important to just like gloss upon that. I think a big thing to take away from that, besides the critical thought, that's a huge one. You can't throw that out the window with anything. You can't say that religion encourages critical thought, Christianity specifically, because the crux of the have faith is have faith. I mean, there are aspects of the Bible that do encourage talking to your leaders, your religious leaders, but there isn't a push to question your beliefs. There isn't a push to be critical of said beliefs. The other aspect with children, if a child wants to come to God on their own, by all means, I think it is disgusting to indoctrinate a child under any religious text, any. But that comes, I think, from society and like parents wanting their children to be like a carbon copy of them, which is, again, disgusting. That's it. That's another human being. Allow them to make their own choices and mistakes. That's part of growing as an adult. Just because you follow that religion doesn't mean they should need to. So that, I mean, you cannot undermine the aspect of indoctrination being disgusting. You can have your beliefs, that's fine, but indoctrination is just gross, unwarranted, unnecessary. So just for context, since you brought up neo-atheism specifically, I'm going to read the definition real quick, brush people up maybe who might not be familiar. So new atheism, the term, describes the positions of some atheist academics, writers, scientists, and philosophers of the 20th and 21st centuries. New atheism advocates the view that superstition, religion, and irrationalism should not be tolerated. Instead, they advocate the anti-theist view that various forms of theism should be criticized, countered, examined, and challenged by rational argument, especially when they exert strong influence on the broader society, such as in government, education, and politics. I see no issue with that. I really don't. Some of the people who are major figures include Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, and Daniel Dennett, collectively referred to as the Four Horsemen of the Movement. Now, there was one lady, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, until her conversion to Christianity in 2023, which is very interesting. You don't often see that, but you do. And that's fine. Good for her. I scrolled through here and I looked through the criticisms. The only thing that I really saw is accusations of bigotry. So when you compare that, because you specifically said, you look at the neo-atheist movement and what they, granted, this is one article, but this is a broad article on the general whole of neo-atheism. I would figure if there's a lot more issues, as you said, more so than Christianity, as you purported, they would be in here besides just bigotry. Just to gloss over real quick, neo-atheist movement has been accused of sexism, especially prominent figures such as Richard Dawkins. In 2014, Sam Harris noted that neo-atheism was to some degree intrinsically male. Let's see. Many mainstream newspapers, especially The Guardian, engaged in more or less naked anti-Catholic rhetoric of a sort that seemed more suited to the 18th century than the 21st. Some people were accused of Islamophobia. So bigotry and Islamophobia is what I saw. Not saying those are acceptable either, but you said in your comment that the neo-atheist movement was far more detrimental. But it's not. It's not mathin'. So We'll move on to your other comments. This is one of your other comments. You said when someone is preaching or displaying their faith publicly, no one is forcing Christianity down your throat. Now, I do agree that some Christians do indeed do hurtful things, but at the same time, you'll have to acknowledge that Christians do good things at the same time. Now, if I were to stop talking about Christians and move on Christianity as a religion and look strictly at its doctrines and dogmas, there's nothing bad about it at all, period. I think that was where you really fucked up, because that is probably, I think, the worst thing you can say, because you painted yourself so far into a corner to say that the doctrines and dogmas of Christianity, there's nothing bad at all about it, period. One of my comments, which you neglected to address at all, which I found very interesting, I used the example of Roe v. Wade being overturned because I live in Texas. As of this recording, to my understanding, there's 26,000 women who have been impregnated as a result of rape, which are unable to have an abortion as a result of that overruling. That overruling came from, I accredit, religion as a whole, especially Abrahamic religions such as Christianity, having its place in politics, which it should not. There's a clear delineation, or it should be, between the two. And yet we consistently have this discussion of prayer being allowed in schools, which you do touch upon at some point. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find that comment because I think that's one of the ones that's missing. But I do recall you mentioned that, prayer was being taken out of schools to the detriment of mankind, basically, is what you alluded to. I think that this case right here, just specifically speaking about Roe v. Wade, and how it has gotten to a point where your religion that you're advocating so much for is affecting people's lives. And you just said in the comment I just read that the doctrines and dogmas are what inspire these people to pass these laws that affect people's lives to such a degree where they are forced to carry a rapist baby, a fucking child, forced to carry a rapist baby because of a book written forever ago, which is where a lot of you guys derive your morality. That's why I made the morality and religion video, is because it is disgusting to me. If you have your beliefs and me discussing this with you or talking about it upsets you on a visceral level, you need to go on a vacation somewhere alone and do some really, really deep thinking. Because the fact that you might feel you're being attacked means that I don't think you're strong enough in your beliefs. Because no one, especially not a dude in clown makeup on the internet who works at haunted houses, should make you that viscerally angry and conjure up such a reaction. Because to me, I don't think you're very solid in your belief system if it affects you that deeply. And a lot of people would counter and be like, well, that's who they are. That's the problem, I think. If your religion is the building blocks of who you are as a person, I think you have a major problem. Because religion can, let's say Christianity for sake of discussion, can inspire you to be a good person. I've seen it, absolutely. Can inspire you to do good and go out in the world and affect change in a positive way. But if that is your only motivation, then I think there's a definite problem. And I mentioned that in the morality video, because if you need a book to decide for you, and I mean, there's so many avenues you can go down with any of these discussions. I'm usually speaking in a broad sense, and I've seen a lot of people comments lately of people trying to go down these specific avenues, and we can absolutely do that, and you're welcome to do so. It's a conversation that will go on forever, because the basis of your reasoning that you are right is going to always be circular, because you're always going to reference back to this book I don't fucking believe in. It's the equivalent of somebody coming to me and saying that they believe in Harry Potter and everything in Harry Potter is real. And their proof being, well, the book was printed, because that's your proof. There has yet to be a single shred of fucking evidence that the scientific community that can agree on that proves without a shadow of a doubt that God exists. that the Bible is true. The Bible is still not looked at as a historical book. It's not. So when the collective society does not agree that this is a historical document that we should base our lives around, but you do, there's going to be some points of contention there, obviously. I do want to finalize this by explaining something, though, that I don't think a lot of people understand with the purpose of these videos. My goal is not to convert anybody, simply because I don't believe that's possible, to convert somebody out of religion, to deconstruct them without their consent. That's on you. You might never. You might always stay. That's fine. I don't care. My goal here is to simply have you sit down and be critical of the things that you support for a minute. Just actually objectively sit there and look at it, because it is, you cannot sit there and say that there's nothing wrong with it. It causes no harm, as you did. That's dangerous as fuck to not acknowledge, because your entire argument started to devolve into, yeah, but what about them? But we're not fucking talking about them. We're talking about you, your shit. Let's talk about your shit. We can absolutely move on at another point and talk about the problems of jihadists and whatever. But I live in America, and the majority of shit that affects people I care about and in my life is Christianity. So that's why we were talking about that. So to be like, oh, but start pointing fingers, you're not acknowledging, your own problems. And you already basically, not even basically, you definitively said there's no issues. There's none. There's bad Christians, but there's good ones. I'm sorry, but that argument is so flat and disingenuous. It's just, it's not good. Say, oh, well, yeah, there's some bad, but there's good stuff too. If I murdered a family of 5 and robbed them after murdering them and then handed that money to a homeless person, that doesn't offset. Okay? And I mean, yeah, you can debate with me. Oh, well, the murder is like absolutely horrible. Obviously, you did something good. You know what I'm saying? It's going to continue with this circular bullshit. Going back to my point, though, I'm not trying to convert you. I just want you to be critical and be honest, because that's really the issue that we had in this conversation. And it seemed like towards the end of the conversation that the tone of your comments seemed very aggressive, and I addressed that. And then you, I believe, said something to the effect of that, actually I have it right here. I said, you said, I said, I have to ask, why does it seem like you've progressively become more aggressive or on guard? Is it because we are discussing the foundation of your beliefs? And you said, not at all. I have always kept an aggressive tone even before we started talking about my beliefs. That is just a natural tone I take when arguing. I didn't think we were arguing. I just thought, you were putting out your points and I was putting out mine. And I even said that. I said, I thought we were just having a healthy debate. So I think you misunderstood my motivations. Maybe this will help clear it up. But it doesn't matter really anything I say, because at the end of the day, I've encountered people like yourself. And the reason I say like yourself, I don't know you. I'm just basing this off of YouTube comments, which are very, surface level. I can only glean so much from that. But based on stuff you've typed, I have had in-depth conversations with people that seem similar. And those same people have looked me dead in my face and just been like, no. Like, I can present them irrefutable proof that counters shit that they're saying, and they will look at me and just say, no, you're wrong, even though it's right in front of their face. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you. I'm just trying to get you to understand that there's a lot of damage that is caused by this religion, and to police your own. You can continue to believe and be an advocate for Jesus and Christianity all day, but actually embodying those beliefs is a tall fucking order. And a lot of you Christians, it's lacking. It's lacking on your part. So I ask again for you guys to police your own. We can discuss it all day, but when it comes to telling me that I'm wrong and that your religion has never hurt anyone, I'm gonna point out where you are incredibly mistaken. So I hope this answers some of your questions. I feel it was better for me to address this in video form rather than typing it out in YouTube comments, because obviously inflection and I prefer to talk than type. I'll do my best in the moments I have throughout the day, but I'm pretty busy. I have other stuff going on all the time, so I can't always obligate a decent amount of time. So that being said, Jordan, I hope that clears some things up for you. Maybe gives you some things to think on. You're welcome to respond in comments and try to refute things I've said. I'm sure you will. It seems you are that way. Ideally, my best case scenario would be you. I don't think this would happen, but ideally, just to have you be like, you know what, you make some good points. That there is some stuff in Christianity that needs to be acknowledged and fixed. Until it is, we can't really purport to be this savior fucking machine that we try to claim to be. So enjoy, and remember, God's not real. Have a great day.